We were on the road for 5 hours when the silence in the car finally became louder than the engine. Megan rode sh*TG*N. Her head tilted toward the window like she wanted to disappear into the fields. Kelly sat in the back, chewing gum with the kind of deliberate apathy only a 24-year-old who never paid for anything could afford. The GPS droned on, counting down the miles like a death clock. Outside, Nebraska rolled past. Flat land stitched with power lines, skies swollen with January indifference. I had asked to skip this trip. Told Megan I had too much on my plate. A contractor dispute, a backlog of reports, 2 clients with thin patience and fatter checkbooks. But she insisted. "It'll be good for us," she said. Meaning Kelly. Always Kelly. We stopped just outside Omaha. A roadside diner with wood paneling and cracked vinyl booths. The kind of place where everything smells like grease and ghosts. I pulled into the lot, parked near the back, engine still warm, hands still tight on the wheel. Megan said nothing. Kelly was already out, walking like she owned the pavement. Inside, the waitress seated us near the window. 3 menus dropped like dead birds. Kelly grabbed hers, scanned it like a CEO reviewing an expense sheet. Megan didn't even open hers. I kept mine folded. I wasn't hungry. The waitress came by, no older than 20, polite but worn out. The type of girl who apologizes before speaking. She asked what we wanted. Megan ordered first, then Kelly, and finally me. I asked for coffee, black, and a club sandwich I wouldn't touch. Conversation was minimal. Megan made small talk about her sister's new kitchen remodel. Kelly chimed in with a story about some friend moving to Austin. Neither looked at me. I nodded when required. Smiled once mechanically. I didn't want to be there. But I had come anyway for Megan, I told myself. For the marriage. For the scraps. The food arrived. It was fine. Kelly complained her fries were soggy. Megan offered her own without hesitation. The 2 of them laughed over something on Megan's phone. A reel. A photo. I didn't ask. I chewed and swallowed and stared at the window where the sky looked like wet concrete. Then the waitress brought the check. She placed it at the edge of the table, closer to me than anyone else. A quiet, invisible expectation. That's when Kelly leaned forward. She didn't glance at me, didn't pause to consider how it would land. She didn't even speak loud. Just enough for the waitress to hear. "He's nobody. Put the check on us." Just like that. As if I weren't sitting right there. As if I hadn't been the one driving, paying, planning. As if the hundreds of dollars already spent on gas, hotel reservations, and roadside expenses were chump change from a ghost. The waitress blinked, confused. She looked at me, uncertain. My hand was already halfway to my wallet. I gave her a slight nod. The kind that says don't make this worse. She nodded back, took the folder, and walked away. "Megan?" She smiled. A soft, complicit smile. Not a grin. Not amusement. It was quieter than that. The smile of someone who agrees. I looked at her. Not a glare. Not a stare. Just a look, plain and still. And she looked away. No one spoke for the next 3 minutes. Kelly tapped at her phone, scrolling like nothing had happened. Megan sipped the last of her lemonade. I sat there, every breath slower, every heartbeat louder. I paid. Not just the check, the silence, too. Paid for it with my dignity. With my silence. With all the years I had spent trying to earn a seat at this table. I stood up. Neither of them looked at me. I walked out into the cold. Not in a huff, not in anger. Just done. The kind of walk you take when something inside you tips just slightly but permanently. Outside, the parking lot was half empty. Trucks idled in the distance. The wind cut sideways across the pavement, pulling at my coat like it wanted me to leave faster. I got in the car, closed the door, sat there. Engine off. No heat. I stared at the steering wheel, hands folded in my lap. This was the moment. I knew it. The kind you don't come back from. I reached for my phone. I didn't text Megan. I didn't call Kelly. I didn't try to defend myself or argue or demand an apology. Instead, I opened my contacts and dialed a number I had memorized but never used in anger. The number to the office, the one Megan never asked much about, the one Kelly used like an ATM. I waited through 2 rings. Yeah? A voice answered. I kept it simple. K*LL her access. Cards. Credentials. All of it. A pause. You want it flagged? Yes, I said. Flagged. Terminated. No appeals. There was no confusion. They knew who I meant. Kelly had been temporarily placed in a support role at one of the satellite offices I managed. It was a favor, no resume, no references, no interview. Just Megan asking if I could help her daughter get back on her feet. And I had. I helped. I always did. When Kelly couldn't afford her car repair, I covered it. When she was short on rent for her overpriced studio apartment, I wired the difference. When she failed to qualify for a line of credit, I co-signed stupidly, thinking I was investing in trust. Trust. What a goddamn joke. The voice on the line confirmed the shutdown would be completed within the hour. Her badge would be deactivated. Access codes scrambled. Company devices remotely wiped and locked. Anything else? They asked. I looked out at the diner, the window where they still sat, unaware. Kelly probably scrolling through her phone, maybe laughing. Megan likely pretending it didn't happen. Pretending I didn't hear. Pretending I'd forget. No, I said. That's all. For now. I hung up, and I sat there watching my breath fog the windshield. It wasn't rage I felt. Not even betrayal. Just clarity. They had drawn the line first. Kelly with her words. Megan with her smile. He's nobody. Let me tell you something about being nobody. You learn things in the shadows. You learn who depends on you without acknowledging it. You learn how many doors are kept open by your hands alone. You learn how many people live inside the house you built without ever seeing you swing the hammer. But when someone calls you nobody, it's not a challenge. It's a confirmation, a permission slip to disappear. So I gave them exactly what they wanted. I became nobody, but not before locking the doors behind me. By noon the next day, the system flagged her. That's how it starts. Not with screaming or slammed doors, but with a silent lockout. One moment, you're someone. The next, the keypad blinks red and the door doesn't open. Kelly probably thought it was a glitch. Swiped once. Swiped again. Pressed the help button and waited for a receptionist who'd stop smiling once they saw the file. Access revoked, they'd say. You'll need to contact the administrator. She wouldn't understand at first. Kelly never understood things that didn't immediately serve her. When she called the company helpline, the person on the other end, someone I had never met, read from the script I'd helped design years ago. A clean break leaves no loose threads. No further information available. Your status has been updated. You are no longer affiliated with this organization. And just like that, the badge was dead. The network login expired. The laptop she'd borrowed, not earned, not signed for, was locked remotely, then scheduled for retrieval. Her email? Archived. Auto-reply activated. This user is no longer with the company. I watched the fallout unfold from my office chair, sipping lukewarm coffee while the calls began to flood Megan's phone. I didn't answer mine. Let them spin. At 12:42 p.m. Kelly texted me directly. It was short, sharp, and entitled. What the hell did you do? I didn't reply. She followed it with another message 3 minutes later. This isn't funny. My keycard doesn't work. IT says I'm terminated. Fix this. Still, I stayed silent. I let her sit in the confusion she had earned. By 1:15 p.m. Megan called. Not once. Not twice. For times. I let it ring. Then the texts came. Are you serious right now? Kelly is crying in the parking lot. She says she's been locked out? Call me. It wasn't until 1:36 p.m. that she used the word cruel. That's when I knew I had her attention. You see, when a man gives everything, his time, his money, his name, his connections, people assume it's endless. They assume he's a resource, not a person. A faucet you turn on when you're thirsty. A wall that holds up the roof no matter how many times you punch it. But when you turn off the faucet, when the wall cracks, then you're cruel. Not because of what you did, but because they depended on it without ever acknowledging it. I let the silence ride out for another hour, not out of pettiness, out of principle. I wanted Megan to sit with the fact that, for the first time, she wasn't in control of the narrative. At 2:09 p.m. I picked up her call. "Michael," she said, no preamble. Her voice was tight, like she'd been holding it together for hours and was now unraveling in real time. "What is going on?" I didn't speak for a moment. I let her fill the silence. She always did. She was locked out. Completely. They said it came from higher up. Her company email is gone. Her equipment was remotely locked. HR won't give her a reason. I kept my voice steady. "Because she no longer works there." "You terminated her?" she said, disbelief warping into anger. "I closed a door that never should have been opened to begin with." "She was trying," Megan said, raising her voice. "You know she was struggling. You knew this job was helping her." "Was she helping herself?" I asked. "Or was I helping her again?" Silently, like always. "You didn't even warn me," she said. "You made a decision like that without even talking to me." "You made decisions without me for years," I said. "But now you care about consent?" That shut her up. A beat passed. "She's your family," Megan said quietly, "whether you like it or not." "No," I said, calm and flat. "She's your daughter." She made it clear I'm nothing. There it was again. That invisible truth, loud and echoing. He's nobody. And yet, the minute I withdrew, I became essential. That's the paradox. They don't want to see you, but they scream when you vanish. Megan exhaled like she'd been punched. "You can't just shut her out like this. Her future was funded with my name," I said. "You think I don't know about the applications?" "What?" Her voice faltered. I turned to the screen. My bank had flagged it that morning. A routine check. They thought I'd bought another car. Car I never saw. A lease in my name. An application with my credentials. Co-signed without permission. With forged digital initials. "You don't know?" I asked. But I knew the answer. I heard it in her silence. "What? What are you talking about?" "You should check your email," I said. "Or the credit reports. Or the online forms she filled out from our living room using the Wi-Fi I pay for. She's been using my name, Megan. Not asking. Using." Her voice cracked. "No. She wouldn't." "She did," I said. "Not just for that car. For the business account, too. The one she listed me as guarantor for. The new laptop wasn't a gift. It was fraud." Megan went silent. "You wanted to talk about cruelty?" I continued. "Let's talk about how many times you let her sit on my back while calling me nobody. Let's talk about the debt she accumulated in my name while calling me irrelevant. Let's talk about how you let it happen, because pretending was easier than parenting." "That's not fair," she whispered. "No," I said. "It's not. And I've been paying the price for that unfairness every day for 5 years." "You're punishing her." "No," I said again. "I'm protecting myself. From now on, I'm not a donor. I'm not a doormat. I'm not a silent partner in a scam built on the word family." Megan began crying. The kind of cry that wasn't about pain, but panic. The safety net had been cut. And for the first time, she realized how much of the web had been mine. "Please," she said. "Just slow down. We can talk about this. Fix it." "You can't." "I already did." And I hung up. That evening, I got the call from my financial advisor. We met over video, but the disappointment in his eyes was real. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't need to. "Her name is on 6 active accounts," he said. 3 with monthly recurring charges. 1 with a credit line in default. 2 tied to your main business profile. "And now," he said, "they're closed. We've secured the reports. Flagged for fraud. Filed the internal notices. She'll be blacklisted from reapplying." "And the debt?" He shrugged. "Yours, technically, unless you press charges." I stared at the screen for a long time. "I won't," I said finally. because it was never about revenge. It was about recognition, about not letting myself be erased by the very people who stood on top of me. He nodded. "You're not the first man to be used this way," he said. "But you might be the first to shut it down without a meltdown." "I've had my meltdown," I said. "It was just quiet." Later that night, Megan came home. Kelly didn't. Megan moved around the house like a ghost. She didn't slam the door. She didn't yell. She just walked past me into the bedroom and shut the door with a softness that made it worse. I sat in the living room, lights off, the house colder than usual. My phone buzzed again. "Kelly." Another message. "This is insane. I've got things riding on this. You can't just cut me off." I didn't answer, because yes, I could. She made a decision when she humiliated me, when she disrespected me, when she used me, and now I had made mine. Clean break. No threats. No shouting. Just silence backed by action. The truth doesn't arrive all at once. It unfolds, like a knot tightening. The first thread I pulled was small, a document on my advisor's screen. A lease agreement tied to an address I'd never been to. My name on it, bold and binding, next to Kelly's signature in a font I recognized too well. "Is this what you meant by helping her get stable?" the advisor asked. I didn't answer, because the more I looked, the more I saw. There were 6 leases, 2 apartments, 1 office space, a short-term rental in Colorado Springs, a co-working pod in Portland, and something labeled Executive Flex Suite in a suburban strip mall 3 counties over. All filed under my name, all with forged initials that almost looked like mine. Kelly had been running a scheme, not a business, not a passion project. A scheme, dressed in startup buzzwords and filtered Instagram posts. Her pop-up branding agency had no contracts, no deliverables, no taxes filed, but it had sponsors. It had me. She was the daughter of my wife, and that had been enough. For years, she borrowed my name like people borrow coats. She wore it into buildings she couldn't afford. She flashed it in meetings, got equipment, credit lines, emergency extensions, all under the illusion that I would always be standing behind her, ready to foot the bill. Not anymore. I spent the next 48 hours in silence. Not sulking. Not raging. Undoing. I closed every open loop. Shut down the business account, the one she opened with a phone call and a lie. I pulled access to the software suite she'd been using under my corporate license. The devices she had borrowed, 3 laptops, a company phone, and a tablet, were locked and scheduled for retrieval. But that wasn't the part that made me pause. It was the line of credit. $19,750. That was the number staring back at me. A balance she'd built with her spending, her late fees, her overdraft protection, all tied to a card issued in my name. She hadn't just dipped into my finances. She dug. There was no apology, no conversation, no accidental charge she forgot to mention. This was willful, strategic, entitled. Family, she'd called it. But what kind of family builds a future on forged signatures? What kind of daughter sees her stepfather not as a person, but as a walking guarantee? Megan had no answer when I showed her the documents. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands in her lap, lips parted like the words had been stolen from her before she could use them. She was trying to build something, she said eventually, a whisper. "With my name," I replied. "Without asking. She thought you were okay with it." "Because she didn't ask," I said again. And that was the theme of this family, wasn't it? The assumption of endless grace, of blind permission, of my consent as background noise, always humming, always on. "She's scared," Megan said. This was all she had going. "No," I said. "This was all I had going. She just spent it." That night I filed the report. Not with the police. Not yet. But with my firm. With my insurance carrier. With the licensing body that oversaw my name, my work, and my reputation. Because Kelly hadn't just risked my finances. She risked my standing. One default, one missed payment, one legal claim against any of those spaces, and I would have been the one answering subpoenas. All for someone who called me nobody. The HR department flagged her for immediate blacklisting across affiliated firms. I didn't need to request it, they did it on protocol. Fraud tied to a company asset is grounds for permanent disbarment in our circle. She won't work in this field again, they told me. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. Because this wasn't triumph. This wasn't revenge. It was surgery. Necessary. Bloody. Cold. You don't cheer during an amputation. You just pray the infection hasn't spread. By sunset, every system she once accessed now carried a warning next to her name. Revoked. Flagged. Fraud potential. I watched the cascade from my screen like a conductor ending a symphony. One click at a time, I closed the doors she had walked through without knocking. And it felt quiet. Not good. Not bad. Just quiet. Like when the snow finally stops after a long storm. You don't feel relief. You feel emptiness. That night, I sat in the kitchen with a stack of printed contracts and my favorite bourbon. A bottle I'd been saving for a good moment. I figured this was close enough. Megan stood in the doorway, arms folded. "Are you done?" she asked. I didn't look at her. "I'm just getting started. She's your stepdaughter." "No," I said, setting the bottle down. "She's your daughter, and you can keep her." "You're burning everything down," she whispered. "No," I said again. "I'm just clearing what never should have been built." She walked away, didn't slam the door, didn't cry, didn't plead, because some part of her knew this was overdue. I had been the silent scaffold holding up the fantasy. The man who showed up, who signed the checks, who answered the late-night phone calls, who never once said, "No, that's not my responsibility." Until now. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Not a number I recognized. But I answered anyway. "Is this Michael Garrison?" The voice asked. "Yes. This is Marcus Dunn. We haven't met. I'm the landlord for 42 Sycamore. Your name's on the lease." I already knew. "I'm terminating it," I said. "Effective immediately. The tenant has been using the space fraudulently." A pause. "I assumed you were in on it," he said. "No," I said. "I was the mark." He cleared his throat. "You'll be responsible for the last 2 months of rent. And cleanup. Send the bill." That was the price of silence. Of letting myself be used for so long. I would pay this one last time. But not again. Never again. By noon, the office at Sycamore was emptied. Kelly hadn't shown up. The manager told me over email they'd packed up what little was there. A few broken chairs, a monitor, some flyers that looked like they'd been printed at home. That was the business. That was the empire. A pile of trash and a half-smoked vape pen. I deleted the photos without even opening them. That afternoon, I received final confirmation. Kelly had been removed from the mentorship network. Her pending application for a marketing accelerator withdrawn. Her LinkedIn went dark. I watched her vanish from the world she had built on my bones. And I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt distance. The distance between what I'd given and what I'd received. For years, I had been a quiet architect. Building futures that weren't mine. Laying foundations I would never stand on. Carrying titles no one respected, but everyone relied on. Now, finally, I was the demolition crew. Not out of spite. Out of survival. That evening, Megan came into my office holding her phone like it was radioactive. "She called me," she said. I looked up. "She said you destroyed her." "No," I said. "She did that herself. I just took away the tools." "She's terrified. She should be. She has nothing. She had me, and she burned it." Megan sat down across from me, her face pale. "She wants to talk to you." "No," I said. "I don't talk to thieves. She's your family." "No," I said again, voice flat. "She was my liability, and now she was cut off." I returned to the restaurant 2 days later. Not because I wanted to relive it, but because I needed to see it again, sober, sharp, stripped of delusion. There's a moment in every man's life when memory must be confronted, not romanticized. Mine was tied to a corner booth outside Omaha where a girl I had helped feed, house, clothe, and protect reduced me to a footnote in front of a stranger with a notepad. He's nobody. I wanted to see that table, to feel the air around it, to sit down as a man no longer pretending. I parked in the same spot. The wind cut the same as before, dry, bitter, uncaring. Nothing about the sky had changed. Same flat gray, same endless horizon. But everything inside me had. Something irreversible had cracked and settled. Inside, the hostess greeted me with a nod. No recognition. No fanfare. Good. That's how I liked it now. I didn't want to be seen. I wanted to observe. Same table? I asked. She checked the chart. Window seat. I nodded. And there it was, the scene of the humiliation. A booth with a torn vinyl seam. Salt shaker half full. A sugar caddy missing a packet. No spotlight. Just the quiet gravity of memory. I sat alone. The menu felt heavier this time, like it knew what had happened. I didn't open it. I ordered coffee. Nothing else. Then the waiter came. Same kid. Maybe 19. Nervous the first time, now a little older in the eyes. He recognized me before I spoke. His posture straightened. His voice lowered, more respectful now. Good to see you again, sir. Sir. It was the first time he'd addressed me directly. The last time he took orders from Kelly and smiled at Megan. He barely looked at me. Now the coffee came quickly. The refill never needed asking. And when I finally reached for my wallet, he waved it off. It's on the house, he said. From the manager. I stared at him. He shrugged. Uncomfortable. We saw what happened last time. That wasn't right. Nobody deserves that. There it was again. Nobody. But this time the word didn't cut. Clarified. I left cash anyway. More than the meal was worth. Because respect goes both ways. When it's earned, when it's acknowledged. I didn't need to be thanked. I just wanted to draw a clean line under the moment. I drove home slowly. The highway blurred into thoughts. Questions. Calculations. Every mile peeled another layer back from the facade I'd spent years holding up. Megan wasn't home when I returned. Her car was gone. Probably at her sister's. Maybe out walking the grief she didn't know how to name. The house was silent. Not empty, but cleared. Like after a storm, when the trees are still standing but all the weak branches have fallen. I poured a glass of water. Sat at the table. My phone buzzed. Kelly. Again. Her name had become a fixture on the lock screen. Missed calls, voicemails, messages, all unanswered, all increasingly desperate. Please, I know I messed up. Can we talk? Just once? You don't understand what's happening to me. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I'm going to lose everything. That one made me pause. Everything? She had built nothing. No job. No education she paid for. No asset in her name. Everything she stood on had been borrowed, stolen, from me. So what was she really losing? Not her identity, just her illusion. I deleted the message. Later that night, Megan came home. Quiet, coat still on. She stood by the door like someone who wasn't sure if she belonged in the house anymore. She's staying with someone, she said. No hello. No eye contact. I nodded. Let her speak. Just a friend. Temporary. I didn't ask who. Didn't need to. She says she'll pay you back. Someday. I laughed once. Not loud. Just a dry exhale. She doesn't even know what she owes. Megan flinched. She's trying, she whispered. She really is. No, I said. She's drowning. There's a difference. She's still your. She's not. I cut in. You need to stop saying that. Megan sank into the nearest chair. She said she'll go to the police. Try to explain. Maybe they'll see she didn't mean harm. I turned to her slowly. They won't care what she meant. They'll care what she did. Intent doesn't erase impact. You don't want that for her, Megan said. You're not that cruel. I stared at my wife, the woman who had stood silently as her daughter erased me. Cruel was letting her believe I'd carry her forever. Cruel was never correcting her. Cruel was you watching her call me nobody and doing nothing. That was a moment, Megan said, eyes wide. She didn't mean it. No, I said. She meant it. The moment didn't build the damage. It revealed it. We sat in silence for a while. The kind of silence that feels like a third person in the room. I miss who we were, Megan said quietly. I shook my head. You miss who you thought I was, because that version stayed quiet, paid the bills, and swallowed disrespect like communion. She didn't deny it, and that was worse than arguing. That night, I lay in bed with a woman I no longer trusted. Her breathing was soft. Even. Mine wasn't. I stared at the ceiling, seeing every dollar, every sacrifice, every ignored insult lined up like dominoes, all tipped by that single phrase in a roadside restaurant. He's nobody. The next morning, I began moving files. Not from the house, from the accounts. I rerouted every financial thread still tied to Kelly, backup authorizations, old passwords, biometric flags. I signed affidavits to distance my name from hers across banks, vendors, even airline miles. I made it a digital divorce, cold, absolute, final. No more threads. No more risks. By noon, I got the notification. A check she'd tried to cash. One from an old reimbursable expense. Bounced. The system flagged it. Frozen. Returned. The message was clear. She couldn't access me anymore. And that was when I realized something else. The fallout wasn't chaos. It wasn't flames. It was absence. Clean deletion. Like deleting a file too large to open. In the absence of access, she became just a name again. Kelly. Not my anything. Just a person in the world, struggling with the consequences she swore I'd never dare enforce. Megan said less with each passing day. She walked softer. She touched me less. I could feel her reaching out in guilt, but never in apology. And I wasn't interested in rebuilding on that kind of silence. That night, I sat alone on the porch. It was cold. My hands ached from the wind. But I needed the stillness. I needed to feel the weight of what I'd chosen. And then I thought of the waiter, the way he'd looked at me. Sir. It hit me then, not all at once, but steadily. The moment someone calls you nobody, it's not an insult. It's a mirror. They're showing you exactly where they stand. Exactly how much they'll take before they even consider saying thank you. Exactly how far they'll go while still expecting you to carry them. And that's your cue. Not to fight. Not to plead. To walk. To let them live in the vacuum your presence once filled. Because people don't realize how much you do until you stop. So now I ask the question again to anyone who hears this. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to walk away? Was I wrong to close the door they left open when they called me a stranger? Was I cruel to finally say, no more? Or was this the only way to make the silence honest? Tell me, if someone looked you in the eyes and said you were nobody, would you have stayed?